What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. It's time to break down WWE Backlash France, WWE Backlash 2024, whichever word you'd rather prefer. Seems like WWE would rather prefer to just say France instead, but it is 2024. It is May 4th, 2024. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and of course, I'm going to be breaking down here everything that just happened on the pay-per-view. And I'm going to be joined by a bunch of loud noise outside. I, of course, am in New York. And if you would be able to see out that window, you'd be able to see that there are just tons and tons of people blasting music today that started right around the time that this pay-per-view ended. So, you know, you'll be hearing some music. Hopefully I don't get flagged on any kind of copyright grounds. Of course, I'm also joined by people in the comments. I'm joined by the live chat here. I see that Peter and Ashton are here. Hopefully some more people funneling in as this goes along. Always chat it up. Let me know what you think about everything. Do the same as what we normally do here. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Ring that notification bell. Also, click on the join button. Now more than ever. Cannot stress that enough. Really need your help to keep Smark Moment afloat. We might not be around forever. And when it comes to the Patreon, or it comes to the Redbubble, TeePublic shops, the YouTube channel membership, if it's $1 a month, if it's the $10 Darkcast tier, like our most recent subscriber to that, Skylar, thank you again, Skylar, for that, or it's Pick Your Poison tier, whatever it might be, it all helps fund the continuation of Smark Moment and Fanboys Anonymous. And, you know, Fanboys Anonymous, a little sticker up there. I finally put that up there. I don't know why that took me so long. Louder than the France fans, I wouldn't say so, but they're at least playing something more than the 2 chants that they had said throughout this whole pay-per-view, which I guess, simplement deux. I don't know anything about French for the most part. I mentioned before, you know, my wife, if she was around right now, she's out right now, I'd be getting her opinion on the French stuff since she does Duolingo, but I just assume, you know, that I'm saying it wrong. As far as Ashton's question here, I have yet to watch. Is this just a regular B pay-per-view? I see people referring to it as In Your House France. And I think that it sounds like that could be a little harsh, but at the same time, that's, I think, pretty standard of what we can get here. I just realized that my webcam was on the wrong thing. So there we go. Now we have the actual stuff on here. You know, live show. Not going to redo it. Yeah, one of the biggest talking points about this pay-per-view is definitely the crowd. They were hot the entire night. They were extremely loud. They were energetic from start to finish and all that. And that's really a good game changer. But I will agree with the people that are annoyed about the chants, because once you had heard, which I believe is what it translates to, is 1, 2, just 2 is what that simplement deux was. Again, maybe I'm wrong. If I am wrong and anybody knows, let me know in the comments or something. But it's basically how, you know, American fans, it'll be like, you know, a pinfall, it'll go 1, 2, and then they'll go either sweet or they'll go, you know, 2, just for the sake of that. Seems like that was the most over thing for this entire show. And the prospect of hearing that over and over, I mean, they did it for every single 2 count, it seemed. Eventually, that got kind of annoying. Is my audio out of sync? Kind of looks like it might be, but I'm not entirely sure. Let me know if it is the case. My lips look like they might be a little bit out of sync here. OBS. Sometimes I drop frames. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I really appreciated a loud and energetic crowd, but I wish that they could have, you know, switched up the chants a little bit here and chanted for more specific things and stuff. Of course, they were hot for everything, though, so that made that a little bit easier. I don't think that the pay-per-view by any means was, like, bad. I think that it was very run-of-the-mill and very in your house, like, you know, mentioning that. That really is a good way to, if you grew up in the new generation era like I did, you know, I mean, I'm a product of like the tail end of the golden era, heading into new generation, heading into attitude era. So I am very aware of what it was like to, I mean, the first pay-per-view I ever went to was In Your House Mind Games. So I know how those felt. And, you know, I remember watching them and getting the VHS tapes. Again, I'm dating myself. of those old events and seeing the difference between WrestleMania and SummerSlam and even Survivor Series and King of the Ring, and of course Royal Rumble, and seeing how that card was built versus how In Your House Beware of Dog or In Your House Break It Down or whatever it might be. You always knew that those were not WrestleMania or SummerSlam caliber events. And I mean, when you looked at the pay-per-view heading into this, the preview side of it, only 5 matches on here. And those matches were in large part not the biggest and most explosive feuds that they had going on. You know, we don't have a follow-up of Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, the huge main event of the past pay-per-view, and compare it to something like AJ Styles and think that it's an equivalent to it. That's no shot on AJ Styles, of course. We all know that AJ Styles is great. Cody Rhodes, and he had a great match tonight, but not great in the sense that I think that anybody's going to really remember anything that happened on this pay-per-view except for the title change that we had gotten. So that in and of itself, I don't think is going to be remembered outside of just that it had happened. And it might be one of those trivia things where in the future people are saying, okay, well, who was Bianca Belair a tag team champion with? Or, you know, Jade Cargill by proxy. And then you just go, okay, well, the other one. And if somebody says, well, when did they win it? You might go, and then you might eventually remember it's Backlash France. But the match itself, I mean, we'll talk about that too. But I guess like my overall point of view about this pay-per-view, and you'll hear that reflected in the way that I kind of am going to be talking about it, is that it was just sort of there. It felt more like a special episode of a TV show than it did with, you know, a huge pay-per-view or anything. If this is how they plan on doing that in the future, I don't think that that's necessarily too bad for some of the other things. Like if we get a follow-up to this at King and Queen of the Ring and it has a very similar vibe, I still enjoyed watching it. I'm not going to, you know, turn my nose up to it, but I will admit that, you know, my focal point was all over the place. You know, I'm looking at different tabs of different things and I'm trying to eat something because it's in the afternoon. And, you know, I mean, there's like a lot of other those elements like that. I wasn't glued to my television feeling like I can't miss a moment of this like I was with some of the WrestleMania matches. And if they continue to do that stuff, you know, we got a lot of downtime on these pay-per-views now with all these commercials, and we have all these, you know, video packages that they run instead of the commercials for Peacock Premium Plus. That downtime leads to an easy way for you to get busy doing something else. And if you're not watching this for coverage purposes, like I am, you know, it's my job to do it, then I can see a lot of people tuning out. I could see a lot of people just focusing more on like having conversations with their friends around or anything. And then next thing you know, I mean, it's, you know, part of the way through a match or something. If you are hyper vigilant in it and you're watching it because this is your thing and, you know, this is your favorite type of pastime or something, then you might get a different kind of response out of that too. I'd like to hear from some of those people too, that like if they are as locked into this as, say, I would be with like a Marvel movie, for instance. You know, you give me like Avengers Secret Wars when that comes out, and you're going to see me like this, like just looking on the screen, probably mouth agape and all. I wasn't feeling that when it came to this pay-per-view, but it still was a solid enough pay-per-view. So I still wish that they were shorter and you trim out all that extra filler content. But let's go along here and let's talk about some of the pros and cons. So one of the biggest pros that I think is going on is, and it's a weird thing to say because I know that this is not a priority for 99 out of 100 people, but these new formatted countdown pre-shows, yes, I'd rather them have a match on it than to just be talking. But then I've made that argument before in the past. Well, if you have the time for a match on the kickoff or the pre-show or the buy-in or the 0 hour or whatever, you might as well just make that the pay-per-view. Like, I don't understand how AEW has a full hour's worth of the matches, and then they have, before that, a half hour's worth of talking, and then they have like the card it's going to start. kind of feel like it should just be a half hour of talking, maybe a half hour of free matches, and then the rest of it is, the pay-per-view itself. But I do like that the countdowns feel more vibrant now with the guests that they have brought on. Like it was Jackie Redmond, Big E, and CM Punk, and little elements of that too. I mean, Big E had mentioned about Tama Tonga being a part of the Gorillas of Destiny with his brother over in New Japan, his brother Tonga Loa. And CM Punk's just like, well, oh yeah, that's right. Like we can talk about that stuff now. It's a new era, that kind of thing. And, that discussion is more fun to me than the more rigid stuff that they had done before. So, it's still like we're working into a new era, the Paul Levesque era. We're still trying to figure out how they're going to do things. And this was our first non-WrestleMania pay-per-view to get an assessment of that. And for that hour of, I'm setting stuff up, I'm getting my lists ready, I've got my tabs open with all, tabs for Firefox and tabs of Chrome and tabs of Photoshop and all these other kind of elements like that. That hour is a little bit easier for me to digest. And they started it off for the pay-per-view, the premium live event itself in a really good way. Kevin Owens comes out, Randy Orton comes out. Again, the crowd's completely just going gaga over them. Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and they all start fighting before even the bell rang. So that led to Nick Aldis then coming out and saying, if this is how you want to do it, then you got your wish. This is now a no disqualification street fight. Have at it. Go mess each other up. And that was a great way to start this pay-per-view. Not only because I think that spiced up the match in a huge way. If they would have just had a regular tag match, it would have felt like this should have just happened on SmackDown. With the no DQ element, they got to brawl around the arena for a little bit. They had some table spots. The tables had quite a bit of action tonight when it came to the commentary tables, but they had some trash cans, which I'll have to admit, this is the stupid things that sometimes I harp on. I'm looking at the trash cans and the trash can lids, and I'm like, they don't look right to me. Is that how trash cans are over in France? And I start Googling just metal trash cans and all that. I always just, if I picture a trash can, I picture the metal trash cans that have that little handle on top. And these ones had this dome going on. Fill me in. Somebody who works at Lowe's or Home Depot. Is that like a special brand or something? I don't know. That threw me off. It's kind of like when you go to some place and you see that they have a different color fire hydrant. Go back to that old Simpsons thing where they go to Shelbyville and it's like their fire hydrants are yellow. This place is starting to freak me out. So I got distracted by that momentarily. But the match itself was definitely one of the better matches of the night. They beat the crap out of each other as much as they could. They had a lot of near falls that set the pace for the whole, it's only a 2 count kind of chant. It's a solid steel trash can. What was the thing that Bruce Pritchard had said in TNA? A salad steel cage match or so. Let's see what else Michael says here. I'm not annoyed with not understanding the chants because it kind of added to the atmosphere of the show. As a one-time thing, I didn't mind it. Not understanding the chants, I don't mind. The repetition of it was getting to me after a while. Yeah, I mean, whenever they go to another country and there's either a really thick accent or they're speaking in another language or something, then I usually end up getting lost anyway. Like I still, we've talked about the UK crowds when they were doing the whole, if you hate Gibson, take her shoes off. And I had to message Callum and be like, yo, the hell are they saying, man? I wrote out a little thing about Solo Sikoa's hair is really giving him a Woody Woodpecker vibe. He's a fierce mohawk at this point. But the biggest thing about this match, and there were some other little elements, the Brainbuster spot was pretty good. And, people pop for an RKO and everything. But the big standout moment here is the interference that we got. And it wasn't even from Jacob Fatu, which that made it even more interesting. Instead, it was Tonga Loa. So we have Camacho back in WWE. He is certainly not going to be Camacho anymore. They probably are not even going to reference that unless it ends up being somebody like a Kevin Owens or, there's a couple people that they tend to bend that fourth wall barrier a little bit when they're promos. And I could see somebody making a pot shot just being like, well, now that you got Camacho here or something along those lines, but he's not being referred to as Camacho. He is Tonga Loa. They are sticking to, okay, the brothers that are outside of the bloodline, but being brought in there. And, we're building this regime of the solo Sikoa version of this, which makes it even more interesting to me because I assumed that Jacob Fatu was going to be here. I was ready for that to happen and for them to bring somebody else in. And we know that Jacob Fatu is going to be in the mix here. Now we're looking at solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa. I don't know where, I'm doing 4 horsemen here. I don't know where Paul Heyman is going to end up staying, because I mentioned on the hot tags, I still think that he's probably going to end up with the non-Rock side of it. And I assume that the Rock is going to be part of this solo Sikoa side. So let's just assume it's solo, Tama, Tonga Loa. Probably shouldn't refer to them as the first names and then not get that confusing. And Jacob Fatu and The Rock, now we're doing the 5, against Roman, Jimmy, Jay. Who else do you bring in? And that's interesting too. Paul Heyman can be on that side, but he's not going to be wrestling. And I don't know if maybe they do have plans to bring any other people in the mix. Maybe I don't know if they plan on having like Rikishi do a one-time match or something. Highly doubt that that's probably going to be the case. But if they want to try to make this, a 3-on-3, a 3-on-4, a 3-on-5, are we looking at War Games already? Is this going to be the 3 members of the bloodline of the Roman Reigns, Jay, and Jimmy Uso, and they need to find partners? Could Cody Rhodes be one of those? We're going to look at that transition in there? That's pretty interesting to me. I'm very much digging the way that this is playing out way more at this point than the way that it had been playing out for the past 2 years or so. I mean, the Brock element of it, the very beginning of it, I liked the Brock and Roman thing. Then it started to get, okay, well, you're just wasting time. And putting Roman up against people like Daniel Bryan and Edge and having that match, like, yeah, it was a great match and everything, but it felt like it was just filler and stalling and eating up time for the sake of not getting to the place you want to get to. Now I feel like we're really, really getting somewhere. And I know that some people are like, oh, I'm already over the Cody thing. I'm not. We'll talk about that in a little bit in the future. But Solo Sikoa gets the win with a Samoan spike on Owens. He's got now 2 people backing him up. We still don't know, as far as I'm aware, what MFT means for Tama Tonga. I don't know what other random nickname they're going to give Tonga Loa, but I am a big fan of this whole story playing out. I like that Tama Tonga is now accompanied by Tonga Loa. I am essentially waiting for those 2 to win the tag team titles on SmackDown at some point. Whoever beats Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, I'm assuming they're dropping those belts to Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. And I'm already in my head booking, are we getting Jimmy and Jey Uso versus those 2 at WrestleMania for the tag titles? Are we getting those 2 teams against each other at like SummerSlam? Or, Survivor Series if we don't do the War Games thing? Because then again, now that we have 2 fighting champions, we could do the whole Raw versus SmackDown thing. We don't have to do War Games. I know that I'm not the only person that thinks this, but I know that I'm in the minority. I ideally would take War Games off of Survivor Series, and I would put the War Games match. I mean, I don't know what we're going to be booking around Survivor Series, but Crown Jewel most likely is around there. I'd rather see War Games at Crown Jewel and see Raw versus SmackDown at Survivor Series. So I'm already looking months ahead to WrestleMania. And to look forward to all the elements that are going to play out over the course of that feels so good to me as a fan. Like, I'm so much more enraptured in what WWE is doing these days than I was a year and a half ago, for instance. So this match, I didn't talk specifically too much about this match, but the introduction of Tonga Loa and, the fun match part elements of itself too. Big fan of how this started off. We got some more people in chat here. Let me just double check it a little bit. We got Chris saying Jacob Fatu will debut soon, probably. We keep in mind as well, everybody, the super chats, if you want to make sure I don't miss something that you're saying. XOY is saying, don't make War Games at Survivor Series compulsory. Yeah, I mean, it's the same issue as with Hell in a Cell. Like, why was it just, well, all right, it's October, I guess we need to have a Hell in a Cell feud going on. I love when they have Royal Rumble where it is. I love when they have Elimination Chamber where it is. And I love that WrestleMania is right after that. As far as I'm aware, that's the only things you need to stick to. SummerSlam should be in the summer. I mean, it's SummerSlam. Survivor Series should be somewhere in the fall because it's just, you got to balance out the whole calendar. Other than that, you can play around with anything. And you should not just be like, it's December, that means it's TLC time. And even though these two people aren't feuding in a way that makes any sense for a chairs match, let's make it a chairs match. You know, it's pretty stupid. So Bloodline comes out on top of that first match. Second matchup, Women's Championship over on the SmackDown side of things. Bayley against Naomi against Tiffany Stratton in a triple threat match. And I, of course, immediately the first thing I was thinking was, I hate Tiffany Stratton's new theme. It just doesn't fit her at all. Her old theme had that poppy vibe to it. It wasn't my favorite theme or anything, but it fit her character. I couldn't tell you who was coming out. If you didn't play the very beginning of that, and if I couldn't see on my screen that Tiffany Stratton was there, if I just went like this, and I was listening to her theme, I would say it was like, I don't know, for all I know, it could be Dijak. It doesn't even seem like it fits somebody on the women's roster, let alone somebody like with this bubbly Barbie kind of thing going on like Tiffany Stratton does. So Def Rebel or whoever is making the judgment call of just blindly picking these themes and deciding good enough. I hate Bayley's theme too. They got to get on the ball with this. They got to start making some themes that actually suit the people the way that Jim Johnston used to do. And the way that, you know, not everything from CFO Money was, you know, fantastic, but they had a lot of really good songs too. So I'm sure Def Rebel can do it. They have made some good songs. It just seems like everybody's philosophy is just off. So, you know, that was one of my first things was just like, man, they got to fix these entrance themes. And then I went straight to, well, when's Bayley going to pin Naomi? Now, the match itself, outside of having that kind of foresight and kind of already judging it by that, thought it was pretty fine. I think that for the most part, Tiffany Stratton was the big highlight here. And when she was doing something, it seemed like there was more energy to the match. When it was down to just Bayley and Naomi, I didn't really care as much. And of course, I figured Tiffany Stratton wasn't going to win and all that. So, you know, I wasn't like, oh, well, you know, anytime she's going for a pinfall, I'm assuming that there's a chance that the title could change. I still was just expecting Bayley's going to retain. But when Tiffany was doing something, I was paying more attention, like the Alabama Slams. You know, she did an Alabama Slam to Naomi and to Bayley 2 separate times, not that, like, you know, doubled them up and stacked them up, but she slammed both of them on the 2 different commentary tables. So that was a moment that stood out to me, and, you know, wasn't the most out there crazy spot of the year. I'm not writing it down on my best spots of the year list for 2024 or anything, but that had more to it than even the finish of this, which was really weird. So if you go back and check it out, or you watched it at the time and you remember, Bayley reverses Naomi in like a very standard reversal. Just, you know, you run of the mill, it happens in every type of match, and everybody just kicks out, and then you know, they both get up and then they both go at it in another way. Bayley just pinned her, and the crowd and myself I wasn't even like really watching at the time. Like I was kind of like, you know, peripheral vision. For context, I have my computer screen right here, and right here on my right is my big TV, and then I have another TV underneath that as like a second monitor. So I'm looking like, I kind of look like this throughout the night, throughout the day. And top right-hand corner of my peripheral vision, bigger TV, I just see the pinfall happening, and I'm typing at the time, looking straight forward like this, and I'm just like, wait, did I miss a move or something? So by the time they showed the recap, I'm like, oh wait, no. No wonder everybody felt like that just came out of nowhere. And not that it came out of nowhere with like, whoa, that was a crazy pin, or like, you know, the momentum was carrying that, and then you know, everybody goes nuts. It was just sort of like 1, 2, and 3, yep, Bayley wins, and everybody went, huh. So I wasn't a big fan of that. I was a little bit confused about how much of a focal point they put on Naomi celebrating for Bayley at the end of the match. Like, she was all smiles, giving her a hug and a kiss on the cheek and holding her hand up and just being like very happy that Bayley won, even though she beat her. And I guess maybe they just wanted to reiterate the idea that they're two baby faces, so she's fine with, hey, congrats, you beat me. And Tiffany Stratton, of course, wasn't a part of that little celebration. So I don't know where they go from here. I can't imagine Bayley and Naomi have any continuation of a feud. I don't see where you have any momentum there. Bayley and Tiffany Stratton might, but King and Queen of the Ring's the next pay-per-view. Tiffany Stratton should be in the Queen of the Ring tournament, and arguably should be the Queen of the Ring. I don't know any other people that they're thinking about as like a really solid option to get that. Technically speaking, they could give it to Shayna Baszler, have her be the Queen of Spades. They could give it to Natalya, have her be the Queen of Hearts. They could give it to Zoe Stark and give her something to do or whatever. But if they don't want to give Tiffany Stratton Money in the Bank, I think Queen of the Ring is the best thing for her. And that would take her out of fighting Bayley for this. So they only have a few weeks. If they put them on the card in any fashion, I don't know how they just don't make it boring. Like, Tiffany Stratton just doesn't come out on SmackDown and go, well, you pinned Naomi, you didn't pin me, so let's have another match. And then they have a tag team match, and it's Naomi and Bayley and Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax. And then after that, you go into Bayley and Nia or something. Maybe. I don't know. Not feeling it. And I said before, I said this leading up into WrestleMania. I said it around WrestleMania. I've said it now. Bayley winning the title at WrestleMania, I understand the feel-good moment that goes on there. But I don't think Bayley as a character right now has the driving force. I don't think that she is an interesting enough character to be champion at the moment. And sooner rather than later, I think we're going to get to a point where people are bored with Bayley being champion. So I'm down with her dropping the title by Money in the Bank, let's say. Pretty sure that Money in the Bank is, King Queen of the Ring and then Money in the Bank is the next one? Or is there something in the meantime? I don't know. Go to smarkoutmoment.com. Actually, go to WWEPLE.com. That switches you over directly to the pay-per-view schedule for WWE. So WWEPLE.com. Why is this not working for me and saying that the site doesn't work? All right. Well, if you type in https://www.weple.com, then yeah, that doesn't work. But just type WWEPLE.com and, apparently I have to set up my DNS settings better. Clash at the Castle. That's right. Yeah, Clash at the Castle is coming around that time. So King and Queen of the Ring, Clash at the Castle, Money in the Bank. At the very least, by Money in the Bank, I'd be fine with Bayley not being champion anymore. Let me just double check some of these things in the chat again. In the meantime, loving Solo Tony, thank you XOY. Crowd does get distracting after a little while. Constant friendship and betrayal storylines. You're going to see more of those, especially with the women's tag. The Bo Dallas stuff, I still have no idea where they're planning on doing with that. I don't know. Nothing happened tonight. So we had like one of those little glitches on the screen. I'm not even bothering with those, to be perfectly honest. When they end up having like a little QR code, I just wait till somebody else figures it out. Which is funny because I remember doing like a lot of research for the Save Us Y2J thing, which by the way is still my ringtone after all these years. 2007, I think is when that was. And I pretty much grabbed it as soon as I could. And now every single time, no matter what phone I've ever had since then, every time somebody calls me up, it's that song. So, thank you WWE for that production song. Second match, or third match of the night, was Damian Priest against Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship. And Jey Uso's entrance with everybody holding up their phones and having the lights on, it's making it even more epic at this point. So he's over as all hell. Damian Priest, of course, is going into this with his first title defense, and Jey was never a singles champion. So a lot of people were ragging on this as being like not good enough of a main event in, world title caliber level and all. It wasn't the true main event, but you know what I mean. And the perception that I got was, again, we're kind of looking at an in your house here. And for an in your house, if this was a different era in WWE, and if we had one roster, one world championship, one intercontinental championship, maybe a secondary, tertiary type of title, like the way that they used to have the European title or whatever. Let's say that that's the United States title. One tag title for the men, one tag title for the women, etc., etc. Damian Priest versus Jey Uso for the Intercontinental Championship, because that's basically what the equivalent of what this would be. I see no problems with that whatsoever. It's not the biggest angle that's happening right now, but it is still, I think, worthy enough of being for a world championship. And, Jey Uso was the top overall pick in the draft. They did something to make him stand out like that. So the match itself, thought it was fine. I don't know what Damian Priest is doing a spear now. Everybody does the spear. JD McDonough gets involved. He tries to help. He doesn't really. That pisses off Damian Priest. Finn Balor tries to help a little bit later on. He actually is pretty successful in that. The elements of this match itself, there's not really much to talk about, like move by move. But I did notice at one point somebody had a bring back heel doink sign. So shout out to that person. And the more interesting thing about this, again, to me, kind of the same as when it came to the Tonga Loa situation, is like an outsider factor, is that the end of the match, Damian Priest gets the pin, he retains the title and all, but Finn Balor and JD McDonough start beating up on Jay some more, and Priest gets angry, pushes them off on the side and says like he's already done, he's had enough, something along those lines. I think he said he's done, and gets them to stop doing that. I'm immediately then thinking, are we getting a babyface turn sooner than I expected? Because I was assuming, we talked about this on the hot tags and all, or maybe we talked about it on the predictions more so than the hot tags, one of the two this week, that the next thing was going to be either a rematch with Jay, or it's going to be a Braun Strowman feud, or, you have a handful of people on the Raw roster at this particular moment that can actually feud with Damian Priest in a heel mode. We currently have, like I said, Braun Strowman. We've got Rey Mysterio, who, if they want to do something there, we've got Sheamus, who could do something, Ricochet, Sami Zayn when he drops the Intercontinental Championship. If they want to try to boost up, say, like a Kofi in one random spot, it's probably not enough time for them to build up Ilya Dragunov or Braun Breaker for that, but maybe in the near future they could be in the mix for that. I don't know if I would balance those out versus the idea of just going straight to the Judgment Day breaking up. And we could be looking at, by the time we get to Clash at the Castle, it's not that far off. It's June 15th, I think, if I remember correctly. Double check again, WWEPLE.com. And yeah, June 15th. So we are a little over a month away from Clash at the Castle. Maybe we should just have Finn Balor versus Damian Priest there. I'd be okay with that. And, maybe in the meantime, we do the Braun Strowman match at King of Queen of the Ring. And that seems like a pretty solid transition in my mind. You give about a month for the storyline to kind of ferment with, like, Damian Priest trying to get Finn Balor and JD McDonough to stop being, kind of a pain in the ass and all. And the split is a big enough deal for Clash at the Castle that could be really interesting. Of course, it's in Scotland, so it's not, Northern Ireland from where Finn Balor's from, but you're closer to there than you are going to get this year. Money in the Bank's in Canada, SummerSlam's in Cleveland, etc. So I think that would be actually a pretty good idea. And the Jey Uso element of the whole thing, I don't know where he necessarily goes. Maybe he's fighting for the Intercontinental Championship by that point. Maybe it's just in a feud with somebody else. I don't know. I guess we're going to have to see how the King of Queen of the Ring tournaments play out too. So Say in the chat here, XOY saying, I always look at Smark on Moments list of pay-per-views. It's now the top when you search. It should be at the top. I don't know why it's not. This is the same page that I always skip throughout the whole time. But the more people I click on it, the more that it's going to be at the top. It gets more clicks than any other page on my site. That's for sure. Did you see the robot dogs being sold? People are putting flamethrowers on weapons. They can robot dogs like from Black Mirror, that episode. Not my favorite episode by any means, but not the type of dog that I would get either. I had a chocolate lab that was great. I had a Yorkie that wasn't so great. Yeah, I didn't see that, but I might have to check into that. Women's tag team title was next, and what's the nicest way I could say about this match to illustrate my opinion without making it seem harsher? I guess I should just say what it is. This was messy. And, Kairi, Sane is great. Asuka's great. Bianca Belair is great. Arguably, maybe the best women's wrestler that they've ever had. That's like, she's in the discussion for that. And Jade's making a lot of progress. She's not at a level right now that, like, you can put her in a singles match and have her do an Iron Man or an Iron Woman match. And it would be like, the most phenomenal thing and all that. But she's making advancements. But something happened here. I don't know if it's a miscommunication between Kairi and Jade, or if it's just one or the other, or something, that threw them off. And I think it was like 3 times in this match, Kairi was going for an armbar, and the referee was like trying to tell her that she can't make a pinfall. She's not the legal person. The shoulders aren't down. It was like, is the ref kind of overtaking his spot a little bit too much? Is he being a little too strict with his rules, or is he enforcing rules that people are in, like, for some reason just ignoring on themselves? Like, did Kairi lose track that she didn't tag or whatever? It was odd. And I think that really threw off this match. Now, we know how this match was going to play out anyway, of course. The way that we've been seeing Bianca and Jade, whether it's a 3-on-3 match or 2-on-2, the other people do most of the work. Jade comes in, does a lot of power moves, and they don't trust her yet to be like the anchor. That's Bianca's spot. So the match was predominantly Bianca, and she's the one that tweaks her knee, and she's getting double teamed and all. And when Jade comes in, she's like completely tossing Asuka and Kairi to the sides and stuff. She had a great spot where she's like flipping Kairi around and stuff too. I like that quite a bit. But it ends the way that we expect it to. Bianca hits KOD. I forget who she pinned. She might have pinned Asuka. I mean, obviously it's Asuka or it's Kairi, so it's a 50-50 shot for me. But she hits KOD. They get the pin. We got new tag team champions, Bianca and Jade. So now we can start looking again into the future. And we've already talked about the idea that this is going to lead to the two of them splitting up. We're going to see Bianca versus Jade by the time we get around to WrestleMania. Either it's at WrestleMania itself, or we get that at SummerSlam, or we get that at Survivor Series, or Royal Rumble, or whatever. Those two are going to feud, which means we know we got to start looking at who can be the next women's tag team champions already. I can't imagine any particular team right now being the team that beats them. It's not like, Katana Chance and Kaden Carter are so over as an act that by the time we get around to that split, that it's going to have to go on them. Or Shayna and Zoe, or, Candice and Indy, or any of those teams. I kind of feel like we might see something with, maybe Lyra and somebody will end up beating them, or maybe Blair Davenport gets teamed with somebody, and we get a new team formed, and that's what they do. Maybe it's just people that are already on the roster right now. Maybe it's Nia Jackson, somebody actually, maybe Nia putting up a fight against Jade. Maybe that's how they get around that. Take your guesses, of course. If you want to be the person that says, back when they won those belts on May 4th, I said that so-and-so was going to beat them, and look at that, I was right. Right now, I have no picks whatsoever for that, but I'm fine with this. I think that Bianca and Jade make sense as tag champs. They get to travel between those rosters. They get to be featured on premium live events going forward. Jade gets more matches. Bianca having more matches is, of course, fantastic because she's awesome. And Damage Control had already had their time as champions, so it's not like they just won the belts last week and we're burying them. It's not like I think that they were really going to be the biggest players on Monday Night Raw going forward right now. It might be, they're going to feud with Becky at some point. We know that. And maybe you don't need to have the tag titles in the mix when they do that. So, I think that the match itself, though, for the women's tag titles, probably the weakest match of this show. So, take with that what you will. We ended up with the main event, Cody Rhodes against AJ Styles for the WWE Championship that still is classified the Universal Championship. We don't call it that, but we don't call it the Undisputed one, but we do. But the Undisputed one's not the Undisputed WWE Universal Championship. It's the Undisputed WWE Championship, and the Undisputed WWE Women's Tag titles are not the same. All the other elements to go along with that really want WWE to just like settle it, But I like that Cody wears the belt around his waist. Something I haven't talked about yet. And they had a rock solid match. It's not going to be my match of the year. It's not something that I think people are going to really compare to Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson. And, when Dave Meltzer doesn't give this a 5-star match rating, I don't think people are going to be like, what? You got to be kidding me. How did you do? It's not going to be like that. But I think that it was rock solid. It sounds weird. I feel like if they do a second match, it's going to be better. And that they were holding back for this one. Partially, I think, to go back to what I said with the predictions, they could be holding back on this because the plan is to do a rematch of King and Queen of the Ring. Maybe it's a gimmick match. And maybe they plan on doing, we don't want to have a no DQ match here because why would we go straight to no DQ? And we already have that no DQ match for the Bloodline match. Maybe the plan is to do something like that. Even if it's not a no DQ match or last man standing or, falls count anywhere or any of the other kind of gimmicks that they could do. I think if they still just do a rematch, it might be better than this one. They work out some of the kinks a little bit. Maybe AJ turns more emphatically heel and then he can play a different style up. But for what the match was, I thought it was good enough. And we all knew that Cody wasn't going to be losing the title here, so it's not like that was a big shocker. AJ, of course, puts on great performances. Cody puts on great performances. They did the thing, and then it ended. That's about it. Wasn't the craziest pay-per-view, wasn't the most bombastic set of events and stuff, but we did get some things that are going to be a big enough factor going forward. We got Tonga Loa. We got new women's tag champions. Is that good enough for you? It's kind of good enough for me. I pay what, $10 a month for Peacock? Is that what the price is now? Or is it $5? I don't remember. I write it off at the end of the year when it comes to the taxes. That's all I remember that I do. So for that and for, knowing that this is a pay-per-view that didn't go on for like 7 hours or anything, it's fine. It's about like a B-, a C+, something along those lines. Not going to be my best matches of the year. Not going to be any of the worst of anything. Not going to be anything at all that I'm going to write down as like, even the Tonga Loa thing, I'm not going to write down as the biggest surprise of the year. But I think it's a surprise that I really like. I think that it's cool. And in the grand scheme of things, it's fine. So, if you disagree with me or you agree with me, whatever it is, I want to know what you got to say. So drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you're listening to this on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you can find us, I plug things in through Spotify, then it kind of broadcasts itself outward. So I don't even know which platforms that Smark Moment's on sometimes, but maybe you're on like iHeartRadio or something. It might be on there. TuneIn, I think I'm still on. Google Podcast is scrapped out recently with their they just got rid of that. So I think I'm on YouTube Music correctly. Whatever it is, drop your thoughts and whatever the thing it is. If you want to, of course, chat it up outside of like that, and you want to go on the Facebook group, go to the Mega Maniacs there. If you want to go to the Discord server, of course, we always have the Discord server up. That is over at discord.gg/ the numbers and letters that you can see on your screen right now, or the sidebar of smartcomment.com if you're listening to the audio only portion of this. I already mentioned this marketplace stuff, Redbubble and TeePublic, join button on YouTube, Patreon, the thanks button, the super chats. Anything is helpful to help us around. I am in a way, I got to figure out a way to keep this going, guys, to be perfectly honest. It's not the biggest money-making venture in the world, and the more support that I get from you, the easier it'll be for me to not have to take some part-time job on the side that I hate doing and I'm miserable with. We don't need to get super deep into that. As far as the fantasy league side of this, I think that we all had the same predictions for our little rundown. We'll have to double check with Callum eventually to see what the actual numbers pan out to, but I'm sure he'll have some more information about that in the future. Linktree, you can always check out amangotree.com for everything on the Smark Out Moment side of things and the Fanboys Anonymous stuff and everything else. Which reminds me, I need to add another movie over to Letterboxd. I need to add, I watched Triple X the other day. I forgot to review that. And I also watched, I'm blanking on the name of the other movie that I finished. What was that movie? My God, I've been watching all these awful movies for the sake of it. And yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I got to double check what I had watched last night. They all blend together after a while. You see enough like Steven Seagal movies and enough, I didn't watch Speed last night. Whatever it was, I don't know. You can find that, though, on Letterboxd. You can find me at Tony Mango all over the place. Of course, keep checking smarkoutmoment.com. Keep following the YouTube channel. Keep checking out the podcasts for Fanboys Anonymous. Show your support for anything under a mango tree. It's greatly appreciated, everybody. And check out EWN, too. Posting stuff on there all the time, of course. And I'm going to try to work on something in the future for that. We might be getting more into the podcast side of things, any wrestling news. So if that ends up being the case and we end up working on these concepts that we're kind of debating about right now, then I'm going to be hoping for all your support on that end too. Might be doing some interviews, might be doing some other things. I don't really know for sure, but whatever you can show your support for. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for, in fact, just listening to this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being in the live chat, everybody that was in there. Thank you for hitting the like button. If you did, if you didn't, hit the like button. Helps out a lot. Takes you 2 seconds to do it. And of course, anything else that happens in the meantime, we'll roll over into the next round of the hot tags. We'll talk about some of the King and Queen of the Ring stuff. We'll get into whatever the main event is for this week. I still don't have a game plan, so I'm always taking suggestions. What would you like to see us do? Maybe something King and Queen of the Ring related? I don't know what we've really done in the past that we can't go back to. I'm going to have to double check to see if we did, who should have been King of the Ring on these other years, or pretty sure we did a mock draft with King of the Ring. I don't know. Maybe we'll figure something out. Maybe we'll watch some old King of the Ring and do some fan outs table or something. If you want us to do something in particular, pick your poison, and we will see it when we see everybody. But, that's it for now. So adios. This has been another Smark Out moment, and I'm being counted out.